Hello everyone and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Today I'm going to be talking about a novel that is actually the first novel I've read that was a recommendation from somebody here on the channel. This was recommended to me by Painted Jaguar, and it is The Demon Breed by James H. Schmitz. I believe this is his first novel. He published a lot of things before this, but it was mainly short stories. This is, I think, his first novel that was published. And it was originally published in Analog magazine in September and October of 1968. And I have quite an extensive Analog collection. So once I heard about this, I just went and looked. And I did happen to have those 2 years from Analog in my collection already, which was outstanding. And this cover, once you read the book, this cover is so cool, and mine is really not in great condition, so hopefully I can find a really good copy of it to put over here. But yeah, the cover of the first half of the novel is in the September, or for the September 1968 issue of Analog, is a cover about this specific story. Here you can see some more art by it. That's Nile with her otter. We'll get into that as we go on. Beautiful artwork in this in these early Analogs. That's the reason to collect them, is just to be able to have that artwork that you don't get in later copies. So it was first published in 2 parts, and it was called The Tuvela when it was first published in Analog, and then a little later that year, I think it was, yeah, this is also 1968. Actually, Ace put out a paperback version first of this, and then they released this book club edition. This is the first edition, first printing hardback. And this is the first verified time that I have come, and I've heard about this, and I know that this is true, that a lot of the times, well, sometimes science fiction books were released as book club editions only. So the book club edition really is the first edition, although in this case the paperback from Ace would be considered the first edition, but a lot of people really are picky for the hardcovers. So in this case, the book club edition is the first edition, which took me a while to figure out, but I was able to do so. So yeah, that's my first edition printing. It's got a great, cool picture of Nile on the front there that I really enjoy. Not a lot to say about James A. Schmitz. He grew up speaking both English and German. He lived in Germany for a while and then left right before World War II. Came to America, lived in California most of his life, and is really, what he's really known for are his strong female lead characters, which we'll get into in just a bit. But for me, when I was first recommended this book, I really thought, in reading the synopsis and looking at just kind of general reviews on it to see if it would be something that I was interested in, I really thought it was going to be another Alien, a proto version of Alien, right, coming out before the movie itself. But we were going to see this concept of a very strong military character that is played by a woman, like in Alien, or it also kind of seemed like a version of Predator, where instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger, you'd have a strong female lead in that place. I was really pleasantly surprised at what I actually found. While there is some of that in this novel, that is not at all what the novel is trying to do or really about. It is so much deeper than that, and I really enjoyed that. This isn't my usual type, although I don't only read mind benders or the weirdest stuff I can find. I read a lot of stuff. This one is a lot more straightforward, but that doesn't take away from the incredible action and world description that we find in this novel. And it was a really fun read. I really enjoyed it. All right. Just a quick synopsis. This story is mainly about a conflict that's been happening between an alien race called the Parahwans. I do not know if I'm saying that correctly. This is a made up word by Schmitz that could have any pronunciation, of course, so that's what I'm going for. And they are this really strong, logical, scientific, but also cruel race of beings that have reached what they believe is perfection, genetic perfection. They're immortal. Not all of them, but the leaders of them are immortal, and they feel like that they were able to hit the peak of their culture and stay in that place through strict regulation and making sure that everybody followed very, very strict rules. They've kind of forced themselves to stay in what they feel is their strongest peak of their race. And it's about these Parahuans who went and attacked a human kind of federation that they call the Hub. The aliens call it the Hub. And about 70 years before this novel starts, these guys go out to attack the Hub, and they're like, this is going to be easy. These humans are just wild and don't have any real strong leadership. We can get right in there and kick their butts. And the opposite happens. They go in there to fight, and they end up kind of getting their butts kicked, and they have to leave and try to figure out exactly why a race of beings that they consider to be inferior to them were able to defeat them so easily. So the answer they come up with is the concept of Tuvela, which is a word to them that means superhuman. They decide that there must be some form of immortal superhumans that are protecting and secretly governing the human race, because there's no way they could get defeated by this disorganized of a people in their brains. So they decide, okay, there has to be a stronger leadership council of genetically mutated and evolved humans that are the ones that really beat us, is what they decide. The Hub is a group of planets that's ruled over by humans. We've spread out, and there's one of them that is a water world planet. It's basically almost all an ocean. There is a continent on one side of the planet, but the rest of it is all ocean, and there are large driftwood islands where a bunch of vegetation has come together, so they just kind of float along in the ocean. And these driftwood islands have diverse biospheres inside of them, vegetation, animals, all of that. And this world is where the Parawans decide they're going to come and launch a new invasion on Earth, a secret invasion. So they sneak onto this planet with their ships. They go underwater, and the first thing they do is kidnap Dr. Tikos K. And that's actually where the novel begins. Dr. Tikos K is a scientist, and he is working on figuring out immortality for the humans. But when the novel opens, he's already been taken by the Parawans, and they have been torturing him, and he has created this story of lies that he's been telling them about the concept of the Tuvela. He kind of knows about their concept that there must be superhumans running this, so he starts feeding them lies that they want to hear about super amazing, genetically enhanced guardian humans called Tuvela. And he has a friend that comes and checks on him every once in a while because he was living on one of these driftwood islands. And her name is Niall Etland, Dr. Niall Etland. And he knows that she'll eventually be coming for him because he hasn't been able to be in communication with her. So he starts building up this mythos that she is one of these Tuvela. Now, of course, Nile is not superhuman. She's our main character. But once she realizes the kind of psychological warfare that Dr. K has begun, she needs to follow along in it. So suddenly she's in a situation where she needs to single-handedly survive, save this doctor friend of hers, and she also needs to prove this concept that she's a superhuman Tavella in order to win the psychological battle that the Parahuans are having with the humans in order to keep their belief going that there are genetically enhanced immortal humans amongst them. But she's not completely alone. She has friends that are genetically mutated otters that are able to speak a little bit and that really help her out a bunch. They were one of my favorite parts of this novel. I just loved. I can see this like it was a film. These badass 7-foot long otters. They're the real genetically mutated heroes of the story, not the human, of course. That's really all the major plot. There is stuff that happens that I'll spoil a little later in this video, but don't worry, I'll give you warning. But yeah, that's it. Coming into it is just this Dr. Nile Etland, who just calls herself Nile, going into this situation and having to use psychological warfare to try and beat these aliens. I'm going to go through a couple of things that I really loved about this book. There isn't really anything I disliked about it, so you're just going to hear a lot of the things that I really enjoyed about it. The first being the world building that Schmitz does here is absolutely incredible. He creates a water world that is unique and really enjoyable. And we spend most of our time on this driftwood island. I don't think we really even see the continent at all. We just hear about it. And this driftwood island is so cool. The way it's described, I mean, he just brings it to life, and all this different alien vegetation and these alien animals. It is incredible. By the end of the book, I felt like I was right there with Nile. I could see this island. I could see the layers of vegetation that built it up. It was just incredibly done. He's a very good writer, and his strength isn't 100% in the prose. He doesn't have flowery prose, but he has direct and strong prose that really give you a visual image of the world around it. It's a simple read, paragraph by paragraph, which I really enjoyed. I've been trying to find and read as many really weird things as I can, which I really enjoy, and I'm going to keep doing. But it was very nice to take a break from that and just read a very direct book. And this one is that, and it's done beautifully. After the world building, I'm sure you knew I was going to talk about this. I got to. This is an incredible female lead. And science fiction at this time and before had a tendency to put women into positions of damsels in distress, or they couldn't see beyond the housewife stereotype. And it was really nice. And I'm not saying all science fiction is like this. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying a large majority of the classics, because of the ideology at the time, it's expected that it would be like this, has a tendency to lean towards that. And this one really didn't. And I'm sure that it was really shocking and mind-blowing at the time for science fiction readers to pick this book up and realize that they were going to follow a woman in a role that usually is taken by a man. And I really think Schmitz was incredible and forward-thinking for doing this. And I'm really happy to say that it is not just a role that was obviously written to be a man and then just had a woman thrown in instead. I think that he really took into consideration how a woman would react in this situation. But I think he did a really good job of making Niall incredibly smart, and she relied on that intelligence, and she relied on teamwork with her amazingly cool otters, and with Tico K. I think that's, yeah, Dr. Tico K. She relied on communication with all these different people that she had access to. And she really relied on the fact that she grew up on these driftwood islands. She knows this world. They're on her turf. And she uses that to her great advantage. So I want to say this is kind of an action novel, and it is. It's an action novel, but it's not 100% that, because action's not my favorite. I like kind of mind-bending sci-fi over action sci-fi. But once I realized how much of this was going to be about troubleshooting and less about punching your way out, I was on board, and it became better and better. And watching Niall troubleshoot her situation through this is incredible. And one of the things that I was afraid of is that she was going to be a Mary Sue, that she was going to be a character that was perfect in every situation. And that was absolutely not the case. She had to rely heavily on her own intelligence to get through this. She earned every moment of that without just being perfect from the get-go. It was really an enjoyable read, really an enjoyable character, and it, in the end, was not just Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger's part replaced by a woman. It is so much more than that, and I highly recommend it just for that alone. Seeing a character so strong early on in science fiction is really cool. So for the next part, I am going to spoil this book. So if you'd like to read this, you should go ahead and stop now and know that I do very much recommend this book. It's a really fun read. If you're okay with sticking with me, then please do. The next part I want to talk about is the really cool overarching story of the alien invasion in this, and how Niall is not just saving this doctor. She realizes very quickly that she is suddenly fighting a psychological war, and she does an incredible job of that. And I just wanted to dive into that a little bit, and this will spoil the entire novel. The aliens came up with the concept of Tuvela, and throughout the entire book, Niall is doing everything in her power to keep them believing that, because there is a chance that the Parawans will just go home, that they'll be afraid of the concept of Tuvela and just leave. And in the end, she is able to win this psychological battle. And there's a moment when her and Dr. Tico K are speaking about why the Parawans keep getting defeated by the humans, and Tico comes up with this belief, or expresses his belief of it as to why this occurs. And basically what he says is that the government, the Federation of all these human planets, is organized and takes care of people, but on the same note, it stays way back and allows individuals within the Federation to handle their problems in their own way. And basically he says it's a controlled type of anarchy. And the example he uses is crime. The government doesn't come and fix crime. Each planet or colony has to deal with crime their own way. And this allows them to create a resourcefulness and an individuality that makes it impossible for the Parawans to defeat humans, because every time they attack, depending on where they attack, they're going to have a completely different human reaction. To me, I don't know if this is true. It's just a parallel I made as I was reading it. It sounds like the concept of America and the West, right? The Wild West, where all these states were part of the United States, but the government didn't completely control what every state did. So you had state rights and you had government rights. In the end, it does work, and this is the big spoiler. The novel ends with the Parawans discussing what happened, and they're very smart. They are coming up with the three possibilities through logic of what could have happened on this planet with Nile. And they come up with one, she is totally a Tuvela superhuman guardian that is the true ruling elite of the hub. Two, she is not mutated, but she could have psychic powers. And three, she could just be a normal human who happened to luck into a situation where she could present herself as a Tuvela when she really isn't. And I like that the aliens were smart enough to come up with all three of these possibilities instead of just running away scared, because it wouldn't make them very believable. And they do run away, but they run away and discuss it in very logical terms, and in the end they decide that they can't beat the humans, and they don't necessarily believe that it's because of Tuvela. They also do a long speech about the individuality of each of these people, make it very difficult to attack them and to win, because you never know what reaction you're going to get from the soldiers, from the people on the ground, whatever unique stuff they know. I think that more than the Western government, it might just be thinking about the concept of absolute dictatorship versus freedom, which is an idea I can absolutely get behind, right? That if you have people that are forced into very strict ways of living with all these rules and censorship, then you lose the flame of individuality, and that becomes a weakness. Whereas if you have exploration that is controlled but still has a large amount of freedom, then you're going to get people that are able to defend their homes and the planets that they colonize much better. And I really like that idea. I think that a really good claim could be put forward that this might be an analogy for World War II. I could easily see that being the case. Anyway, that's my kind of quick, deep reading on The Demon Breed by James H. Schmitz. Thank you, Painted Jaguar, for the recommendation. I really did enjoy it. It allowed me to be able to read something that was more direct, which I really enjoyed. Because I've been reading so much prose that I have to tackle like the same paragraph 2 or 3 times. This was a real breath of fresh air from that. If this sounds interesting to you, I highly do recommend you go out and grab it. Just my rating of it, I would probably give it an 8. I know that seems lower, but again, this is all just my personal interpretation, and I look for slightly different things in books, but that's also very high. I really did enjoy reading this, and I do recommend that you give it a try. All right. If you like this video, please click like. If you like this kind of content, please click subscribe. And thank you very much for watching this video to the end.